And we're live. Woohoo! And today
Yay!
we have the
Welcome. Hi, Jeff.
amazing,
Hi. Tim.
yeah, we have the amazing Jeff. And I think
Hey,
Christelle's on delay. Oh,
what's
she
up,
was.
Tim?
Anyway.
What's up, Christelle?
So,
Hi. I'm a little. I keep getting frozen, Tim. I'm sorry. I think you
oh,
noticed.
that's okay. It's like, we were fine before the interview
Get
started.
the
Anyway,
get the gerbil running on the internet wheel. Let's go.
yeah, I know. It's basically, get James on the treadmill behind you, powering you up, Christelle. That's the thing you need to do. So, anyway, Jeff.
Hey.
I know you from non-college sports related stuff, mainly because I know very little about college sports because I'm in the UK.
Hmm.
However, Christelle and most of the US seems to know an awful lot about college sports. And my understanding is that you can get your kid into a university or a college
Hmm.
and then they can get to play football or baseball or basketball or some sort of sports.
Hmm.
And there's a massively complicated, intriguing process that you've been through to do this. So,
Hmm.
talk about college sports recruiting and what it is to a lay foreign person who has no idea what it is.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And it was great seeing you in Grand Rapids when you were
Yeah,
doing your US travel. So it was good seeing you. Um, so the process is unique, and there isn't a lot of useful information out there. You can Google all day long,
yeah,
what it takes, and what you normally will find are businesses that will help consult, that parents might pay a lot for, um, or there are other organizations, NCSA to be one, not a um, not an endorsement for them, but they're just one of the sites that do that, where you can pay a fee per
yeah,
month, or a bulk fee, and they'll help you get in front of college coaches and that kind of thing. So what I found, though, is that there wasn't a ton of information that was cataloged in one place to help empower parents to do this, navigating this process themselves.
yeah,
So you have an athlete, and listen, every parent thinks that their kids are going to go play in the NFL or the NBA, or they're going to go play professionally. Obviously that isn't the case, but um, if your student genuinely has athletic talent, and they have the opportunity to play at the next level, um, that type of talent you can sort of see early on. Usually high middle school, so seventh, eighth grade, and into high school. You'll get information from their coaches like, hey, they're really good at this, or you'll kind of naturally see that there is something different about your college, your high school athlete, that they may have the potential of playing post high school. And what we found with our oldest, Joe, who is going to play college football at Lake Forest in Chicago, um, he he just had this natural talent for both football and basketball, and so we he chose football. And so the steps were really this: trying to find the coaches and the programs that he would be a good fit for, and then trying like hell to try and get in front of decision makers in these programs. And so I've got this course, that catalogs all this information and everything. But really, the kind of the steps are, making sure that you have a great online profile. Now, the examples I've been using are through Twitter, and whether or not Twitter survives is sort of
yeah,
one thing, but um, this any of the information that you see sort of that I'm posting on my blog or posting in that course, you can also utilize for threads as well, um, or Facebook, or any of the other platforms that are similar. And so you've had this great solid profile, you have your stats and what year you're going to graduate and that kind of thing, um, and you put together your highlight reel. And so your highlight reel is going to be mostly recorded from the program that you were participating in at the time. So when you're in high school, um, everybody has video. So whether it be football, basketball, baseball, volleyball, soccer, every coach is going to have some sort of recording device to have film. And it's either up to the program or up to the parent to kind of catalog and create highlights out of that film. And there's a great site that most of this video is posted on. It's called Huddle,
Yeah.
HUDL. And Huddle is a site that has and like a very rudimentary editing software within the website that you can kind of put together your highlight reels. So you put together a highlight reel of some of the greatest things that you've done as an athlete. And then you take that huddle link, that reel, you have your social profile, and then the next step is just try and find programs, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the magic is, though, because it takes a lot of hard work to sift through all of the different programs, right? So the way that works in America, you've got your NCAA, which is the most well-known athletic conference or athletic um, agency that oversees athletic competition, right? So the NCAA has three different levels. There's D1, D2, and D3. But then there are two other also well-known athletic oversight committees, and there's the NAIA, and then there's also junior college or JUCO. Um, and it really just kind of depends on what level you feel like you could participate in or you could go for. Obviously, everybody wants to try and play D1
Yeah.
NCAA because that's where the exposure is. That's where you get the opportunity to play for what's called NIL money, which is name, image, and likeness, where the college essentially, or the university essentially sells your rights of your image and your likeness to advertising and other sports programs, and then you get a big cut as an athlete. You get a cut of that money. That's something new, But so everybody wants to go to NIL. Everybody wants to go to NCAA D1 and try and do what they can. But obviously, that isn't realistic. Um, so you have to sort of temper your expectations and be realistic about where you could play. Now, the beauty of my son was that he was getting exposure from lots of D3
Yeah.
and NAIA programs. Now, D3 and the NCAA, they don't offer any athletic scholarships. However, if you are, they kind of focus on athletes who are also very good, exceptional academically. So Joe is an exceptional student, so he was able to get a very large academic scholarship that um, may or may not have been able to be influenced by the athletic department at Lake Forest. I'm not really sure how that works. I just know that when a college recruiter in D3 sees an exceptional athlete and an exceptional uh, uh, student academically, they're kind of able to go to the admissions department and say, "Hey, look, here's a list of people that I really think would be a good fit for the school, good fit for my
Yeah.
program. They're really good students." D3, they're able to give up to a 50% athletic scholarship, and then the rest of it can be done academically. So D2 is kind of where you start having the process or the opportunity of getting a full ride, and then D1 you can get full rides for fully athletic and also some academic as well. NAIA, they're also able to give some athletic scholarships, and sometimes they're full rides and sometimes they're a partial. Um, and NAIA is a really good competition. If you have any, if you don't think you're really going to go to the next level and play professionally, but you want really good competition where you can make good money from a scholarship, but you aren't really quite at the level playing D1, NAIA schools are great. They're really
Yeah.
good competition. Um, and in fact, they almost in some cases are better than even D3 or some D2 programs. And they also are at very well-known schools that you're also going to get a really good education. So I wouldn't sleep on NAIA programs either. But so once you kind of decide all of that, You think,
Mm.
oh man, which level am I going to go for? Then that's kind of when you do your research of what programs are even out there. Do you want to stay local? Do you want to go far away? And so then you kind of do your research on. This is where you can use the NCSA website, where you can create a profile in NCSA. And I talk about this in that course, where you create a profile in NCSA. I talk about how to do that, and then you can utilize their program search feature on their website, where you can kind of search by NCAA, D2, D3, D1, NAIA programs, and it'll give you a list of all the colleges and universities in that state or in those couple of states that you're searching for. And then you take that list, then you go to Google, you search for those colleges' athletic websites, because every school is going to have their own main college or university website, and then there's an athletic website that's separate. And then you search for football or basketball, whatever program that you're looking for, and then it gives you um, research that athletic program, look for their records, look at the kind of competition that they've had, um, look how long their coaches have been there. The longer the coach is there, and if they're somewhat successful, or if you see that a coach has been there for say 6 years, and you look at their past records and they've increased their winning percentage every year that the coach has been there, typically that's going to be a pretty good program. um, but just kind of look and see if that's a program that you might want to contact, right? So once you've done that and you've kind of looked at their program and said, hey, they've done pretty well. They are doing, they've won some championships in their conference, or they have, they've increased their win percentage year over year, or whatever. And then you kind of look at their roster, right? And their roster will tell you where each of those students are from. And then typically when you see where those athletes are from, then you kind of get an idea of the areas that they recruit out of. Okay. So Lake Forest, for instance, they have a lot of students from the Chicagoland, Wisconsin area. And they also have a lot of students that come up from Arizona. It's just they do a big camp in Arizona every summer. And so those are the regions that most of their athletes come from. Some from Michigan, not very many. In fact, Joe, I think, is going to be the second athlete from Michigan that they've had on their roster this year. I mean, they don't have very many from Michigan, but so you kind of get those anomalies here and there. But you kind of look and see where they recruit from. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you're from New York and they've recruit mostly from, say, Wisconsin, that doesn't mean that you can't be part of the program. It's just you got to get an idea of where they search for. And if you're coming in from a different region, you kind of have to do a little bit extra to get their attention, because they're not normally used to recruiting from Michigan or New York. They're used to recruiting from Wisconsin or Chicago or Illinois or Arizona. You kind of have to do a little bit extra to get their attention. So you see where most of their athletes are from, and then you look at their coach list, and most of the time, unless they're a really well-known, big-name D1 program in one of the Power Five conferences like Big Ten, SEC, Pac-10, you're not going to get their coaches' emails. You're not going to. You'll get their Twitter handles mostly. But in lower programs like D2, D3, NAIA, you're going to see a list of their coaches. You're going to see their coach contact emails. Um, Most of the time on the coach list, you're going to see their position, obviously, that they coach, and then you'll see recruiter or recruiting in these regions, right? You want to target those people. You don't want to necessarily target the head coach,
Yeah.
because he's not going to be responsible most of the time for recruiting. He's going to let his position coaches go recruit for him. So you go after some of those, assistant offensive line coach, assistant defensive coordinator coach, right? You go after those people. For basketball, go for their, assistant defensive coach. You go after those guys. And then I have a link in the course to an email that I've drafted. It's sort of a draft email that you can copy and paste and edit as you need to, and then you send out emails to those coaches. However, That's one way. The other way, though, that's been more effective is using social media like Twitter.
Yeah.
Now, again, Twitter over the last month hasn't really had the best reputation, but it's going to take a little while for coaches to either stop using Twitter and move to another platform like, say, Threads, or they might just stay on Twitter because it's easier, which is either one. Whatever your personal feeling is about Twitter, if you are a student athlete or a parent, um, I get that. But if you're looking to try and get into a program, you got to use it. There's really no way around it. You're not going to be on Twitter, you know, on there to post stuff. Typically, you're just going to be there to make connections and kind of post your own information. You're not trying to get involved in the conversation per se of what happens on the other sides of Twitter. You're just there to make connections with other athletes and coaches and share your information. Um, so on that same page where you see those coaches, um, more often than not, you'll see their Twitter handles. So start following them. If you don't see their Twitter handle, you can search for their name, and more often than not, they'll show up in your search. Start following them, and then start following other coaches, and then start following other coaches in those suggested follows section of Twitter. Just start following all of them.
Yeah.
Don't don't necessarily um, audit those lists. This if you see a coach and they gives you 6 guys to follow, follow all of them. You go to the suggested follows section, follow all those people. Whether or not you make connections with them, what that will do then is as Twitter does, the more people you follow, the more active you are, the more you will show up in those suggestions. And if you've got a completed Twitter profile and coaches are looking for potential athletes and they see you show up, they're going to click on your stuff, they're going to follow you, they're going to click on the huddle link, and they'll look at your highlights. Um, the other thing about following on Twitter is that a lot of coaches will leave their DMs open. So even if you don't follow them, their DM will be open. So maybe instead of emailing them that email, you copy that entire email and you DM that instead, or you do both. Either way, but those are two different ways you can utilize that email. Um, Invariably, you're going to start as a student athlete. You're going to start getting traction. You're going to start seeing coaches follow you. You're going to start seeing DMs coming in. The first initial connections are typically going to say something like, "Hey, your highlight reel's great," or "Your highlight reel's fire," or "Hey, man, what's good? What are you looking for? What kind of program are you looking for?" And then once you have that initial connection, they're going to send you, most of the time, they're going to send you a link to a recruitment questionnaire. And then they're going to send you a link to future camps that they are hosting for you to attend to showcase your skills. Okay. So the first thing is that recruitment questionnaire, and that's how they're going to capture your data. So you you when they send you that recruitment questionnaire, you fill that out right away. It'll have your contact information, your stats, so like your 40 time, your squats, your bench press time, your bench press weight, your your shuttle time, that kind of stuff. For football anyway. And then it'll might have another few questions. Um, and then what that does, that puts you in their database, and then each coach, as throughout the connection process, will kind of rank how interested they are on their side, and then they can start sending you information through mail, um, of a variety of stuff. And then the second thing is that those camp links. So you also want to search for camps to go to too. um, so showcase camps, which you can highlight, you can showcase your skill set. You want to use a site like Riser, Ryzer. um, that will give you an idea of what kind of camps are out there. But coaches will also send you links to camps either that they are hosting or that they are going to help out. Now, these showcase camps are in a couple different ways. There's like a combine type camp where you kind of go through the process of doing your 40, doing your verticals, doing all these different tests, and then they split you up into different position groups where you'll do like what are called 1v1s, where you'll kind of learn some new skills and then you get to test those skills out against somebody else. So in Joe's instance, he was an offensive lineman. So he learned some new skills about being an offensive lineman at these camps. Then he goes up against another defensive lineman to kind of do this 1v1 kind of thing. So there are a few different things, and most of the camps do something similar to that. So you search for these camps, go to as many as you possibly can fit in your budget and fit in your time. These camps cost money. Sometimes they're a long distance away, but the more camps you go to, the more exposure you get and the more interest you get from all these programs. Most camps will have multiple colleges at them. So say one's hosted at, say, the U of M in Ann Arbor, right, the University of Michigan. They might have 7 or 8 other colleges that show up, one to help run the camp. So they might have some of their, might have some of their coaches come and help out, but they're also there to observe, right? So if the U of M may not be interested in this particular person, this particular player, another D2 program might be like, oh yeah, let's take a look at this kid. And then after the camp is when you start making connections with coaches, you start getting their Twitter handles, you start following people, and you start making those connections. So go to as many camps as you possibly can. And then throughout that whole process, obviously you keep up with your grades, you keep up with your own skill set and your normal program. So when you start football or basketball or baseball or softball or volleyball, whatever, you kind of work through the season, but you maintain those connections. You maintain your exposure on Twitter. So even though you're busy with school, you're busy with your season, you still have to kind of maintain and increasing your connections. That's where I kind of stepped in with Joe, is that during football, he couldn't do a whole lot of it. So I had his Twitter account on my phone, and I didn't necessarily act like him, but I followed a bunch of coaches. I kind of did that process with him. Of I did that part for him of following coaches and sending links out and just connecting with them while he couldn't, because he was doing school and doing practice and playing games. So as a parent, that was kind of my role, is kind of help find those opportunities to make those connections and send those emails and stuff. So, um, you know, I just spent the last 20 minutes talking nonstop about the process, and there's a whole lot more to it than that.
I think
That's in that course that I built. But
yeah, I'm
it's a
not
lot.
sure if it's my fault for asking this most general question ever, or
Yeah.
or the fact you've got a complicated subject. Anyway, Christian,
It's a complicated. I just wanted to hear you talk, Jeff, because it is a complicated process. I've watched it in several sports
Hmm.
with my own boys, and just some sports that I was connected to in high school. So I want to ask you. Hi, Tim's son, by the way. I saw you hop in and say hi. Hi, friends. He said.
So Tim.
yeah.
I want to ask you about. I want to ask you two different questions because I know
Hmm.
this could be critical as well. The
Yeah.
highlight reel.
Hmm.
When do you start making the highlight reel? I think people will probably have no idea where to even begin. Do you start as
Sure.
early as freshman year? How does this work, and how good does it need to be?
Okay. So the highlight reel is depending on what level you're at. So most of the time, JV programs won't have. They'll record it because they do their film, during practices, but they may not have. Um, they may not create highlight reels for a JV player. Um, as soon as you get into varsity coaches will break those up for you into different highlights. And so the way Huddle works is you can click on certain highlights that you've participated in and then kind of put them together. Now, the thing with the highlight reel is you want to resist embellishing the highlight reel. We made this mistake early on with Joe's junior year film, where we had music and we had all kinds of crazy stuff in it. Coaches don't want that. They don't care. They don't want the music. What they want is they want this. They want to see the play start when it's paused. They want to see an arrow or a circle over you as a player, and then they want to let the play run, and that's it. And then they go to the next highlight. Again, no music, no added stuff, no added graphics, just an arrow or a circle over you as a player, then let the play run. right? They just want to see your skill set. They want to see your ability. They want to see what happened during the play, and that's it. It's
Yeah.
you don't have to add all that extra stuff to it, Um, and I think you can create your own really great video highlight reel through Huddle with all the graphics and all the embellishment just to have as a showcase. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you're going to send something to a coach, they don't want any of that extra stuff.
I have
But
one
I would
backup.
say as early as possible
Yeah.
is when you want to put that together.
I have one backup question. I'm really curious about this. How involved are the high school coaches in helping each student get into their college of choice? Or, I mean, are they helping create the highlight reels? Are they helping find the universities that your child might want to get into?
Yeah, depending on the program. In our case, our coaches were not as very helpful, and not because they didn't want to be, but because we went to a small private school. So they have other things, like the head coach was also working another job, right? So he wasn't able to be as involved in the process. But you go to a large, say in Michigan, a D1 program where there are, it's a 2,500 student school where the coach is a full-time coach, then, they might be able to be more involved in the process. But um, what I have found is that it really is up to the parent and the student athlete themselves to take initiative to make this happen. They might be able to, some of the coaches might be able to provide some guidance, and maybe they have some connections. Say, hey, I know the offensive line coach at Grand Valley. Here's his contact information. Here's his Twitter handle. Send stuff to him. Tell him that I sent you. They can help out in those ways, and they do the best they can. But um, again, it really is up to the student athlete and the parents to make those connections and take that initiative.
Hmm.
Okay. Hopefully, not asking you another vague enough question. But um, I mean, college thing isn't really a thing anywhere outside North America, as far as I'm aware. We don't really have it in the
Mhm.
UK. Um, if a child, if somebody's a parent of a child, say, and they're very, very good at American football
Mhm.
or basketball or baseball, but they're kind of average, middle-ish kind of academic thing. Does it
Mhm.
make sense for them to apply for like scholarships and things on the college side to try
Mhm.
and improve their sporting career, or should they be looking for just going directly towards pitching themselves to the bigger clubs if they're thinking of going professional on some of the
Right.
sports side of things?
Right. That's a good question. And in my experience, all right, so if you are very, very, very good at
Yeah,
your sport, you're already going to get the attention of some other high level programs. So you may not necessarily have to be that great academically. You're already going to get some attention.
yeah,
A good example would be, I can't remember the dude's name real, but there was a running back out of a school in Florida. Wasn't that great academically, but was getting so much attention just because he was so great, right? And so colleges and universities have a way to overcome some of that. You got a full ride on an athletic scholarship, but they provide tutors and that kind of thing.
yeah,
If you're kind of at a level where you're not 100% sure, maybe you've got a 2.5 you know or less GPA, which is sort of a ranking. 2.5 is about middle of the road.
yeah,
Um, Not the greatest, but also not terrible. Um, you could probably go after maybe a D2 school if you're really good at what you're doing in your school, and maybe you get some athletic scholarship money. But if you're really good or just really average, but you know that you have the ability to play at a college level, but you need some help academically, that's where the NAIA and the junior college sphere would be a really good place to start. Because especially if you go to a junior college, you can get that experience of playing good quality football or basketball or whatever sport,
yeah,
not have to worry so much about your academics because you can get some help in that arena, and then kind of work your way up. So maybe you can transfer to a much larger program down the road.
Okay.
Jeff, you gave us so much good information, and I think that parents and students are just starting out and are kind of lost and wondering, where in the world do I begin? I think your course is probably going to be very, very helpful because, as you said and you've explained, there is so much to it, and they're pretty much on their own. They're pretty much on their own to go find everything that you just explained. So thank you for being here and helping us understand a little bit better, having this course. I hope it gets into the right hands. There's a niche for this, for sure.
I think so.
Where can people find you? Where can they find your course? Where can they find your social media?
Sure. So the course is on my website, which is jeffhowell.me. So jeffhowell.me. And the course is really on the first page. You scroll down and you'll click on it. I also have a free ebook that you can put in your information in your email and subscribe, and you'll get access to a free ebook that you can download, and just it gives you some tips of what to do on every social platform, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, Facebook. You just find me at Jeff Howell 76, and then also on the website at the very bottom, you'll find access to the Instagram and Twitter handle I have that's specifically for the college sports recruitment.
Yeah, I presume it's 76 because you're born in 1976 and not 76 years old.
That's correct. Yeah, I look great for being 76, right?
Oh yeah, it's like you also must have had kids quite late if you're 76 as well. That's Anyway, it was great to have you on the show, and it was great for all the people watching. So thanks. And next week we have another guest on. So I need to check who that guest is.
I was going to say, who is it, Tim?
I think it's Libby Langley, who's like autistic business coach. Person.
Oh, wonderful! That's awesome.
So, anyway, it's great to have you on the show, Jeff.
This is what God requires.